10 years ago, I was dating my now husband, and we had planned a dinner with his family at his mother's house. The dinner was set for a Friday, and since we were going there after work, we drove in our separate cars. His mother's house wasn't in the best neighborhood, but it wasn't the ghetto by any means. When I arrived with my two sons, there was no parking available on her street, so I had to park on the side street next to her house. As I parked, I noticed how odd it was that her street was full of cars, but the side street I parked on was pretty empty, aside from the houses. As I got out of the car, carrying my 2-year-old son while my 10-year-old held my hand, I noticed a white pickup truck driving towards us at a very slow pace. He didn't appear to be looking at the houses as someone might if they were searching for an address. Instead, he kept his gaze fixed on us. I locked eyes with him, entering protective mommy mode. He didn't take his eyes off of us. It sent shivers down my spine. I kept walking towards the corner to my mother-in-law's house. He drove right past us, still staring, and I kept walking. A few hours later, it was late and dark outside, and we all got ready to leave. My 12-year-old stepdaughter wanted to ride home in my car, so I told my husband I would meet him at home since he was still saying his goodbyes. I wasn't completely ready to leave yet. As we walked to the car, I had my 2-year-old son in my arms, while my stepdaughter and son walked right next to me. When we turned the corner, I saw my car and the same white truck parked right behind it, with the creepy guy still in his car and the engine running. There weren't any other cars parked on this particular street, so there was no reason for him to be parked right behind my car. I told the kids to be careful and stay close. As we got closer, his eyes locked with mine, and neither of us looked away. I could see pure evil in his expression, which never changed, and his unwavering gaze sent shivers down my spine. At this point, the kids noticed him and started to get scared. I briefly considered walking back to my mother-in-law's house, but for some reason, I kept walking towards my car. As I reached the back passenger side to open the door and put my son inside, the guy reached out from his rolled-down car window to unlock the driver's door, all while maintaining his unsettling eye contact. As he got out of the car, and before he could reach us, I screamed as loud as I could for the kids to run. I started running with my son in my hand, and my stepdaughter and son ran ahead of me trying to escape. I turned around and saw the creep chasing after us. My 10-year-old was slowing down, so I gave him a little push while yelling for him to run. I was yelling at the top of my lungs, yet no one came out of their houses to help. Just before I turned the corner, I noticed a patch of grass and thought about lightly placing my son there and letting the creep catch me, as I'd rather he hurt me than my kids. But right before I did that, I saw my husband and his brother run out of the house because his daughter had made it inside and told him that someone was chasing us. They ran towards us, and the guy took off before they could even get a glimpse of him. The creep left his truck running and vanished. We called the police, and when they examined his vehicle, they found his wallet, rope, and Clorox right in the front seat. The cops said whatever he was planning wasn't good. They eventually found him hiding under a car in a neighbor's driveway. They asked my stepdaughter to identify him. We were all shaken up. Just seeing him again upset us deeply. He was taken away, and I couldn't sleep for days after. I later found out that his fingerprints came back as a suspect in an unsolved murder. Even years later, it still terrifies me, and I can't imagine what could have happened to us. I should note that the reason he had to reach out from his car window and open the door from the outside was because he had removed the door handles. The cops said it was clearly so that once we were inside, we couldn't open the doors to get out. Back in the summer of 2015, I was working at the local Walmart, pushing carts in the sweltering heat. I can't recall the exact date, but it was around the 4th of July when this unsettling story unfolded. One day, while working my shift, I received a call over my radio requesting assistance to help a customer load items into their cart. Eager for a brief respite from the blazing sun, I quickly responded, assuring them I'd be right there, and I hustled over to the checkout area where the customer had asked for help. The customer in question was a middle-aged, heavy-set man who had just purchased a massive 52-inch flat-screen TV. I greeted him with a warm smile, and he reciprocated with a friendly demeanor. He stood at an imposing 6'8" and spoke with a deep southern accent. We exchanged pleasantries, and he even extended his hand for a handshake, which I accepted. Together, we made our way to his gray van parked in the lot. During the walk, he engaged me in small talk, asking about my day, my age, and how I liked my job. I answered his questions honestly, mentioning that my day had been going well so far. I was 18 years old, and that I couldn't complain about my job. After all, it could be worse. Once we reached his van, we collaborated to load the TV into the back. After the task was done, he asked me where I lived and whether I lived alone. Initially, I didn't think much of it, as other customers had asked similar questions in the past. I casually replied, "No, I stay with my grandparents. I can't afford to live by myself at the moment, and I live a mile or two out of town." Taking the man's cart, I wished him a pleasant day and started walking away. However, a few days later, I began noticing that the same gray van would consistently be in the Walmart parking lot when I worked. Initially, I dismissed it as a regular customer who frequented the store daily, which wasn't unusual. However, my suspicions were aroused when I observed this gray van tailing me wherever I went. Since I didn't own a car, I walked to and from work and other places. It struck me as peculiar that the van never overtook me as I walked. Instead, it kept a constant distance behind me, unconcerned with impeding traffic. My unease deepened when I spotted the same gray van following me one Wednesday night. I was walking home from a youth group meeting at my church. Initially, I disregarded it, thinking it was a mere coincidence, but my anxiety mounted as the van continued to tail me even after I left town limits. Typically, it would veer away at this point, but this time it stayed on my trail. I began feeling that something was seriously amiss and wished fervently that I had my pocket knife with me. The van persisted in following me until I reached my driveway, only to depart once I entered my house. Goosebumps cascaded down my skin, and I double-checked that all the doors were securely locked. The following evening, I walked home again after a men's group Bible study, haunted by the memory of the previous night. I resolved that if the gray van trailed me to my house once more, I would immediately report the situation to the police the next morning. True to form, the van began shadowing me once more. Frustration welled up within me, but I gritted my teeth, determined to confront this person or whatever their intentions were. However, this time, as the van pulled ahead of me and came to a halt, a wave of terror washed over me. The driver's side door swung open, and to my horror, it was the same customer who had bought the TV. He approached me as though nothing were amiss, greeting me with normality. He inquired about my destination, and I replied that I was heading home, promising myself that I would report him to the authorities first thing in the morning. However, his friendliness began to turn sinister as he insisted that I shouldn't be walking home in the dark. He argued that it was dangerous and that unsavory characters might be lurking about. I repeatedly declined his offers for a ride, emphasizing that my home wasn't far. As I tried to walk past him, he grabbed my arm forcefully, asserting that he would give me a ride whether I liked it or not. Panic surged through me, and my mind raced for an escape plan. I was certain that wherever this man intended to take me, it wasn't to my home. In a moment of desperation, I contemplated screaming for help when, almost miraculously, a police car pulled into a nearby gas station to refuel. It was as if fate had intervened. The man abruptly released my arm, issued a cryptic farewell, and sauntered away. I felt an immense sense of relief, grateful for the police officer's inadvertent assistance. I rushed home and immediately contacted the authorities, recounting the harrowing events of the past few weeks. This encounter was a chilling reminder that danger can sometimes lurk in the most unexpected places. This story takes place years ago when I was around 12 or 13 in a small town, technically a village, about an hour and a half away from a big city in the US. On summer days, my best friend Sarah and I would venture around our woodsy neighborhood and do typical kid things. I had a little sister, Sammy, who was around 7 or 8 at the time, and Sarah had a little sister, Alex, the same age. Our favorite thing to do was walk over to the neighbor's house, the Smiths, and use their trampoline. While our neighborhood was spread out with dense forests in between, it was our go-to spot for fun. One day, Sarah and I decided to let Sammy and Alex come to the trampoline with us. They weren't allowed very far from our house without an adult or us with them. But we occasionally let them tag along on our adventures, especially if our parents made us. We played on the trampoline for about an hour or two and decided it was time for some snacks. We were almost back to Sarah and Alex's house, but the last stretch was a long, isolated road with a creek flowing by and no houses lining the road, just dense forest on both sides. As we cleared this area and were about to reach their house, we saw a woman with short black hair and sunglasses walking her baby in a stroller. She was walking towards us and would soon pass us. I didn't recognize her as someone who lived in our neighborhood, even though I knew everyone. She passed us normally, but right after she said, "Oh, hey kids, I'm a little lost. Do you know what road this is?" None of us were very alarmed because our neighborhood was windy and could be confusing, and many people from surrounding neighborhoods took walks there because of the woods. We told her the name of the road, and she said she was really lost and needed to get home to take care of her baby. Then she asked if we could escort her to her house because she didn't think she would find it even with directions. Sarah agreed to help, but I felt very uncomfortable. I had been told never to talk to strangers, even if they were women. I told the lady that none of us could help because Sarah's dad was expecting us home soon. Sarah gave me a weird look, but I think she caught on because she said, "Oh yeah, we really can't help. Sorry." At this point, I wasn't freaked out, just cautious. I knew I shouldn't be helping strangers to their house. I stepped closer to the lady to push Sammy and Alex forward so we could start walking away. That's when my heart sank. The baby in the stroller was fake. It was wrapped in blankets, but I could clearly see that it was plastic. At that point, I didn't know what to do and found myself screaming, "Run!" I made sure Sammy and Alex were ahead of me and we sprinted for their house. Sarah's dad was working in the garage, and we ran in out of breath, starting to cry. I quickly told him that there was a lady trying to get us to go home with her, and she had a fake baby. He grabbed a golf club and told us to get in the house. We went inside, and a few minutes later he came back. He said he was heading toward the lady when she spotted him. She was already on the phone with someone, and out of nowhere a white van pulled up. She threw the stroller in, and they sped off. It was definitely a creepy experience, and I don't know what the lady's intentions were, but I feel that they weren't innocent. This truly scared the heck out of us, and we didn't wander around the neighborhood nearly as much after that. Hello everyone! If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful or entertaining, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Your support motivates us to create more content you'll love. Thanks a million. And if you've just subscribed, please drop a comment saying I subscribed. We'd love to welcome you to our community.